Okay, wonderful. Welcome everyone to the June meeting of the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority. And I will now call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum present, and we do have some fun things on today's agenda, some good progress points to mark for the city and some things that we're anxious to hear more about. We will start with approval of the minutes from the April 23rd meeting, which were circulated previously. Are there any comments, corrections, or additions to the minutes?
None.
Yeah, all right, seeing none. Motion and second, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right, chair's report. So we've had quite a bit going on here on the agenda today. We have Gloria Martin Roberts and Ryan Unger, who are going to talk about some significant new efforts to do an economic development plan for the city and how that's all going to be coordinated and what we might expect for some of the outcomes. So we will look forward to that presentation. I won't say anything more about it right now. I did have the opportunity to meet with the mayor and her executive staff since the last meeting, and good session. And a number of things to report back to you on that, and some things that we will potentially follow up on as well. First, with the Neighborhood Services Fund, you will recall that they have budgeted, I think, about $2 million out of ARPA funds to pay off the outstanding trash bills for people who are disabled, senior citizens, and a few others. They are now finalizing arrangements to put that in place. It's also going to be extended to include some nonprofits, primarily churches. And then they're going to redouble some efforts on other outstanding balances, particularly business and commercial, where they are going to more aggressively try to work out repayment plans and see if they can get those in place. And to the extent they do not receive cooperation, then look at what the appropriate legal action is going to be. The other thing that they're working through is to determine which of the accounts are subject to have passed through estates, and so have some collection issues there, and then other accounts that may be related to bankruptcies and obviously collection issues there. So if nothing else, there will be some clarity relative to some write-offs. Let's see. We talked a little bit about pending assessment appeals. It's still, I'll charitably call it a work in progress. And there have been a number awarded, and there are a few others that are pending. City legal counsel is tied up with some separate litigation right now, so has not been quite as actively involved in on the city side in that respect, but the county and the school are involved as well in how those appeals are being handled. And Brian may want to talk about this a little bit later, but now that we have the last audit out of the way, we have pretty much gotten the information into the auditors for the next round. We can talk about that.
Sure.
Well,
Certain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
and so at least we're making progress on there. We aren't at quite the aggressive schedule that we had hoped. On the other hand, we are working toward getting back on track. They are also working to retain a consultant to review health insurance. And the city is self-insured for health insurance and then a stop loss coverage for both aggregate and specific claims. But the intent is to not look just at that in terms of the reinsurers and how it's structured, but also to take a look at, is there potential for re-entering the market of traditional self-insured or traditional healthcare coverage. And then last, at the invitation of the legislative delegation, the city has submitted a list of RACP projects for a 10-year span, totaling about $1.2 billion. Obviously, an aggressive ask, but again, over 10 years, and it does cover quite a few capital projects, as you would expect. Is the norm for RACP, but also some allied groups, and just throwing my other hat on for the moment, it includes a request on behalf of the Capital Area Greenbelt, for example. So it is rather comprehensive, was put together in consultation across agencies as well as with a number of outside groups that the city supports. The other two things that I wanted to report to you, the first is city related, and that is the LERTA project that is in the 1-year window that was granted by council for the 1-year extension of the prior LERTA ordinance. And there is a fairly good work group that's been put together to develop revisions to the program and make recommendations to council to do a new ordinance, hopefully get readopted by the end of this year. So that means we have a roughly September deadline to get something done. The work group has met, I'm going to say 4 times now, and there's a comprehensive list of revision questions that the members of the committee are responding to in advance of the next meeting. And then last, and I know Elaine in particular is waiting to hear news on this, we are working with the delegation to get the 2 open chairs reappointed, new appointments, and then to relieve Elaine, who is gracious, has resigned, but is graciously sitting until her appointment is named, which you appreciate. So there are about 10 names that we've discussed, and so some outreach is being made there. And it's kind of a 2-part outreach. Are you available and interested? And then second, based on what your employment is, because a few of these are state employees, are there conflicts of interest that can be are an issue or that can be overcome? So stay tuned on that.
Good. That's a lot of information.
Yeah. So that's my report. Economic development, Ryan's here. We're waiting for Gloria. I presume she's still coming, Ryan. You just met with her earlier.
Yes.
And she and I corresponded, so I anticipate she will be here before too long. And we will move to that agenda item once she arrives. And so in her place, how about we jump to your,
Oh, okay, all right. It's always good to be prepared, right? So I'll just hand these out.
Yeah, one more, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Do you need one? No, we're good. Yeah, brought you guys. That was good. Thank you. What is it? Did you? No, that's all. That's it. Okay, we have a yes. Similar, but okay.
Right, very good. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Feels good. The AC feels good in here compared to outside. So there's 2 main handouts I just distributed, and first one is on the general fund. And I'll be brief. What I wanted to illustrate here was we're through the first 5 months of this year. What's attached is what we reviewed at this board meeting back in April for March. Just as a comparison. And for the 5 months ended in May, the city, you can see, has generated about a $5 million excess amount of revenue over expenses. So there's a nice increase to our cash position at the end of May of about 23.5 million. And then there are the encumbrances, of course, that are reflected there as a pull down, which gives the budgetary basis fund balance at the end of May. So there is room to comment about improvement, both cash wise and budgetary balance wise. On the budgetary balance side, back at the end of March, we were at 15.5 million, whereas we're at 16.8 as of the end of May. That's the general fund.
Before you go into neighborhood services.
Sure.
Can I just ask you, at this point in the year, we probably have a pretty good sense, are we seeing historically similar trends, for example, on real estate tax, which is very heavily in the
Right.
about this time of year, is coming in at about the same, right?
It appears to be, I'm thinking in terms of even where we are right now in June. With, in particular, there's the revenue lines, including EIT, LST, are right on budget really, which is very, very strong because that's a rough estimate. I mean, we have actuals that we base that on, but it's always an estimate as well. The LST is a little easier to estimate, but the EIT is, I'm really pleased with where we are, where we will be come mid-year. Also, the city's transfer tax revenue is strong. I think we've actually exceeded the budget already for 2025. For real estate tax, we're about 85% of realized budget, which is still pretty good because we do realize some collections toward the latter part of the year. But that discount period, of course, is the big revenue producer. Yeah. But,
So this sum reflects those strengths.
yes, yes. And I mean, just taking it further, for where we are in June right now, like our cash position at the end of May is 23.5. As of right now, we're sitting at about 19.7, with a couple of more days to go in Treasury, for June. But that's down, of course, primarily because June is one of the lower revenue makers for the city. There's that fluctuation. And also in this month of June, the city satisfied its minimum contribution of 1.25 million to the debt service fund, which relates to the bond debt guarantee the city has for the redevelopment authority's revenue bonds on the Commonwealth Verizon Tower. Yep. So
Thank you. That was my general fund question.
okay. So then the next handout is Jeff mentioned on the neighborhood services fund. And it's laid out in a similar way. For the month of May. Sorry, lost my place there. Yes, for the month of May, that's year to date on that fund it's not huge, but it's a strong indicator of there's some improvement there. The cash position on that fund at the start of the year was 5.6 million. It is now up to 6.1. And of course, I back out the encumbrances that relate to that fund, where the budgetary basis number is about 5.2. So there is, in a similar comparison, the balance of that fund coming into June right now it's down to 5.9 million, and that'll probably creep up a little bit more. It's not at 6.1 where it was at the end of May, but the city, you might be aware of this, is incurring additional legal related expenses. There's a current jury trial in effect this week for the opposition against the eminent domain taking of the public works complex. So we've encumbered about $200,000 to accommodate anticipated legal fees and expert witness testimony fees that relate to that. So hopefully that'll be resolved in a favorable way, but it's just they're contending that basically the city didn't pay enough,
right,
for the acquisition of that property, which was about 2.3 million in 2019.
It's generally how many done that.
Yeah.
You get the property, but sometimes you have to pay over how much it costs.
Yeah.
I do have a question about the neighborhood services fund. You heard earlier from the chair where Mr. Hill reported that later this year, we expect some of the ARPA payments for delinquent trash bills might actually start to flow in the
Right.
2025 fiscal year. Although we don't know how much or any of that, we do know that
Right.
the budgeted total amount is up to $2 million ish. If we don't know how much might happen or how quickly that might happen. Some of that would probably go to the neighborhood services fund. Some might go to that old trash fund that you're sort of carrying
Yeah.
along some of the old debt on.
What, right now, my understanding is it will all just flow right into neighborhood
So it might,
services.
it might
Yep.
skew to the good, neighborhood services very significantly. In terms
Right.
of a one-time benefit, if
Right.
that ARPA money does start to forgive people's trash bills who are elderly or fixed income or disabled. But that money will then move from where it is now in federal.
Right, yeah,
It's in a separate fund.
it's in our grants fund.
Grants fund.
And right, what you just said, it'll be an internal transfer from that fund over to neighborhoods.
But it might very much skew the balance.
Oh, it will.
Neighborhoods.
Yeah, I'll be sitting down here one day and say what the cash balance is, and you're like, well,
Much higher.
hey, we're making progress on this fund. Right,
Good. Thank you.
certainly. So any additional questions? That, so what, again, I mentioned the mid-year report is coming up, and that's of course more on the budget side of things. And our budget manager will be, more in close contact with that. But I'm just thinking that way because now we've achieved, our expenses are pretty much done for June. And now there's just a few more days of revenue that's on tap.
Right.
So with that, to give you an update on audit progress, as Mr. Chairman mentioned, I've been working quite a bit on that, making progress. We've uploaded a lot of reconciled work papers in some major areas that we're getting audit preparation assistance from Meyer Dussel. And I've already uploaded those to Boyer and Ritter's website. They include such areas as workers' compensated absences, and the big liabilities associated with pensions and the OPEB liability. I've been working on the debt side of the city's book, and these areas are done. The debts are receivables. I'm now working quite a bit in the treasury area, which includes, of course, cash and supporting documents that relate to that, including confirmations. And that's for 2023, but I've also chipped away a little bit of 2024. My thoughts are I'd like to achieve a completion of the 2023 audit by, if not late summer, before the end of September. And at that point, we'll still be working on 2024. And the goal there will be to get that done by as close as I can get it to the end of calendar year 25. Once we get that, I can take a breath and then we'll be back where we need to be, back on track. And Jeff again mentioned the ARPA funds. I believe now the Treasury portal has come out with guidance on how to close out the grant award, because the city has effectively done that. So the next time I go in for the June quarter, there'll be some navigation or some roadmap as to how to complete that process. And City Council too would like to meet with the administration. I think it's going to be in early September sometime, just to rehash what the city has done and what the status is on certain things like the trash balance forgiveness. And lastly, most importantly, as Jeff nudged me a little bit today, we have the updated 5-year plan coming up. It's due the end of August. So that's of course on my radar, and of course it kind of fits with what we're going to be going through now, heavier on the budget preparation side.
Right, so I pointed out that we have, our next meeting is the fourth Wednesday of August. And that's right before the deadline, 3 days before the thing, for 2 days before the deadline. For the plan, so in the past, we sometimes had either some rough draft or some tables or something that we could start. Using that meeting to see if we can review something to keep the process moving, even if you're not done yet, putting the whole document together.
You're right.
Just use that meeting to keep the process going.
Yeah, every little bit.
Every little bit. helps, yeah.
Progress helps. That's right. So, that's pretty much it on my end. I just want to thank Jeff too for like his needs for this board for the section. The 203.
Yep,
Report that
203,
was
annual
due-
report.
that was due April 30. I mean, there was a bit of work there to get what Jeff needed, but I appreciated his pinpoint accuracy on what he exactly needed.
Right.
To help me get it to him. So thanks.
And we
again,
did
Jeff.
file it on time, so I don't know where it goes when it gets to the General Assembly, but we did file it, so. We did our part. I do have one question, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay. We've talked in the past, Brian, about parking revenue, and if I could just confirm with you what I suspect to be true. Nothing has really changed in the world of parking. We're getting our parking tax revenue, which comes in occasionally, but not any payments other than the tax payments.
Right, yeah, that's the main revenue line item, which actually is doing quite well. That's another revenue line that's doing very
Yeah.
well compared to budget. But the parking system,
We're not getting any
we're not-
revenue from the
the,
system.
the PEDFA or the priority payment or the ground lease payment.
That's it.
Yeah,
Even though we're good, because all that is related to our upcoming discussion about economic development and what's the future of downtown Harrisburg. And obviously the parking system is sort of a canary in the coal mine for what's going on in Harrisburg. And the zip generally means that it's still not a healthy parking system. Even though we are getting good tax, which is good, that's
Right.
one of the revenue benefits. So there's some percent of every parking sale, permit sale, or meter sale that comes to the city as a tax.
20%.
20% is the levy, so that's good, at least that's. Parking is better than last year, I guess we could say that.
Yeah, I think there's some improvement. Yeah.
Maybe that's a reflection on that, I was very getting a little better.
We hope so. Kathy?
Brian, I'm just curious whether or not Munis has been helpful to you in doing what you're doing.
It has, in many respects, I think we're through the worst of the learning curve process on that, yes. There just are some, not stumbling blocks, but there's just additional navigation that it takes to get to what you want to see. Not so much with input, but for reporting or pulling up history. It's that is still a learning process to get comfortable with the steps that are involved. So,
Thank you.
yeah, yes, you're welcome.
I think at some point, maybe talking to Steve about his perception of the overall project
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
might be a good idea.
He would
because
be,
He's
yeah.
been deep in the weeds now for a long time, trying to get things
Right.
operating, and there have been some pits and starts,
yeah,
different units, different modules, and different departments.
right, to get it all set up and migrated in. On that project, there's 6 phases, 2 of them are complete. So the other 4 mainly involve, the utility system, taxes. They're working through a transition out of actually Munis and into a different approach for the HR system. So that's more work there. Yeah.
It's had its issues.
Yeah.
Trying to be
Yeah.
generous. There is rarely a conversion to ERP that does not have its issues.
Especially as complex as the city is.
It's absolutely.
And how deep your legacy systems were. The AS400, the IBM. and-
Yeah.
As we started the last century, it's
Right.
not a good place to start.
Other questions? Anything else?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep going with a couple other things. I sent a note over to Gloria to make sure she's Still got it calendared. I haven't heard back from her, so maybe that means she's on her way. In any event, so let's move on to a couple other things of the authority managers update, if you don't mind.
Do not mind. So we have a paid bills report, which you all are on the board received a copy of for the previous month. Pretty standard, the big expense, obviously, we mentioned this last time, is our annual, one of our 2 annual insurance premiums was paid. Which is good. We did renew that one policy, which is our general liability insurance and our E&O, or maybe that's the one we still have to do is just our general liability. So that was a big expense, and I appreciate Mr. Hill's assistance as always with insurance, because he does a better job than I do reading policies for some reason. I can't get it. It's all Greek to me, as they say, right? Also, today is the beginning or the end, excuse me, of the fiscal year, believe it or not. I know it doesn't seem like it, but the fiscal year is the new fiscal year is effective July 1st. And that's the way we go. So our fiscal year ends June 30th. So this is an apropos time to approve the next year's operating budget for the ICA. Which is very boring and fits on one page, sort of 1.5 space, because we don't have much of an operation here compared to the city budget, which is a masterpiece compared to our simple budget. But we do still need to approve it. I will point out one thing that it's a significant change and will help make a transition to our next agenda item. We did put aside some money in this budget for the first time to help with the either in a bridge sense or in just a grant sense. That's, we'll talk about, but money in our budget to help with the economic development initiative that we're about to talk about. Obviously, as I've explained to the chair, it's one thing to put it in your budget, it's another thing to expend it, and that'll be a decision of the board as to how to use that funding. But at least it's earmarked in our next fiscal year 25-26 annual budget. Obviously, we have a pretty healthy fund balance, so we're able to cover things. We do, however, because of that grant, have a slight deficit for the one fiscal year, but we've had such surpluses in the past. We can more than afford 1 year with a slight deficit. And that's assuming we actually do contribute money to the economic development effort. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the board members approve the proposed budget, and then we can move on to talking about the economic development effort.
And for purposes of discussion, I'll take a motion to approve the budget.
Any discussion?
We will have discussion.
Yes.
Yes.
So moved. Second.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll open it for discussion.
I assume, but that's always a bad word, that you have had discussions with our solicitor about appropriating that money for that purpose.
We haven't talked about it specifically, and maybe we should have a more detail before we spend it. We can encumber it, or that's not even the right term for us. We can earmark it for that purpose, I think, but you're right. I think that we should let our council maybe look into, after we have the discussion about the ideas for economic development for the initiative. Maybe we'll have a legal review to see what our authority under the law is to contribute whatever it is the board wants to contribute to that.
I'm comfortable with that and frankly support the idea of using that money for that purpose. So I'm happy to see that included in the budget. I just want to make sure we're not stepping into something we didn't expect.
I think that's a wise concern that we should answer before we spend any actual.
Thank you.
If I could expand just a little bit, it is placed in the budget as a contingency. And because there are moving parts, this is something we have not done. And we, meaning ICA and the city and Creedic in this context. So how the money might be needed, if it needed for a match, for example, or some other thing. But the overriding issue at the moment is that, as you will hear in the presentation, this is an aggressive effort, and people are already moving in a lot of directions to get some of this accomplished, get it underway. And that requires a certain amount of capital to get moving. And we're working on grant funding from the Commonwealth, but oh, is the budget gonna be done this week? Okay, you get the idea.
Yeah.
So as a matter of contingency, we may need to make that allocation to help keep things moving until, until the Commonwealth budget is adopted, until we know, if we have actually succeeded in getting appropriation.
And
And our presenters will be talking more about that.
it strikes me, Mr. Chairman, that in the early days of the ICA, we talked about doing a seminar in effect for this very purpose. So it strikes me as something that has been historically for us, something that we wanted to do. In the meantime, Ryan, if you will, has gotten out ahead of us, which is perfectly fine with me and the city. And it's something that I very much believe we need to do. So I'm a proponent of it, but would like the solicitor to bless it.
Sounds good. Okay.
I will review that.
Yes, so the solicitor has heard your request and we'll work on
Right.
Okay,
it. In the meantime, we do have a motion and a second on the floor.
right. And any further discussion? Okay. Call the question then, on the proposed budget, all those in favor, aye? Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you all very much. All right, so now, I will invite, Gloria Martin Roberts and, Ryan Unger and Jason, if you want to join us up at the table as well. We have an extra seat here too. Our presentation this afternoon, maybe we'll call it presentation and discussion, is about economic development. This is something that's been part of our agenda for essentially the entirety of our history, and our interest in working with the city to move comprehensive economic development planning forward. To this date, I think it's been hampered in a number of ways, most particularly by staff capacity, because we have so many other fires that we're putting out, things that we're working on, and recruitment, retention of businesses, and many projects like that, as well as how staff time is split between economic development and housing and other areas of responsibility. And so we were presented an opportunity by the legislative delegation to talk about getting significant state appropriation in place to do consulting services to essentially help put together a plan. The focus has been through CREDIC, and the model that has been discussed, not as an exact one-for-one, but at least conceptually, is what was done in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, where a regional group, not dissimilar from CREDIC, put together a 10-year regional economic development plan, and then a shorter-term focused economic development plan on behalf of the city itself. And so that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. The timeline that is under discussion is to do perhaps 8 months, have this accomplished within about 8 months, and to do it in a way that draws in a number of different individuals, segments, and interests across the community. And that's business interests, community, neighborhood interests, and a list of other groups as well. And assembly of that group is already underway. And in fact, a number of folks have already been meeting in a number of different contexts. So I know the two of you had an opportunity to sit down earlier today to talk about where we are and how you might handle this presentation. And so I would just throw it your way. And as you feel ready to open it up for discussion, we'll open that.
Good afternoon, and it's nice seeing you all again. I think it's probably been a little over a year since I was here last. And the last time I came before you, I promised that we were going to make economic development a priority. It was our intent to have a plan, a comprehensive plan, not just for downtown Harrisburg, but the city. We have met with a large group of stakeholders representing all levels our community. And, Doug and I have met several times on economic development. He knows this is a top priority for me. And actually, you know, coming up with a comprehensive plan cannot be done by one person. That, it's a monumental task. It's not doable just having one person in charge of such a large task. And, Doug was nice enough to come to the table with an idea that if we could get some funding and we could hire a consultant that would actually be in charge of bringing the group together and working with that group to come up with a comprehensive plan. And as he said earlier, that's in pursuit. And we hope that we will get the dollars to be able to do that. If we don't get the dollars for some reason or another, I'll get very creative and see whether or not we can use some HUD dollars to accomplish the task. I want you to know that economic development is on the move in the city of Harrisburg. We have several projects that are either in place or finished. We have a developer that has purchased the Polyclinic Hospital. And I and the mayor have met with them, and it's going to be a wonderful project. Market rate apartments, an upscale restaurant, a coffee shop, and I'm excited because I'm like a stone's throw from that facility. That's where I live. And a small grocery store, which I emphasized to them had to be multicultural in their offerings. Because at least in the area where I live, it's very multicultural. And so they have to appeal to the persons living in that part of our community. They've been very, very easy to work with. They're excited about the project, and we are too. TLC has finished their project at 15th and Regina. I don't know whether any of you have had the opportunity to drive out there, but it's beautiful. Actually, it almost looks like it shouldn't be there compared to the surrounding neighborhoods that are there. He will be moving forward in phase 2 out there on Allison Hill, but it is absolutely gorgeous. And those are low to moderate income housing. We have, let's put these on. The county has just, are in the process of purchasing land so that it can be used for the unhoused. And that's a feat in and of itself, because as all of you know, it's a very, very difficult task to serve the homeless population, to make sure that they are safe, to make sure that they're also not violating other neighborhoods and so forth. And so we are going to be continue working with the county to make sure that this process in transferring the homeless population is going to be a good process. We're also working with CASH, which is the organization that represents all of the organizations that serve the homeless population. So it's a partnership and it's comprehensive. Bethel, their building is finished. I haven't drawn down their funding yet because they owe me some documents that I have to get, but we're going to get them. Beautiful, beautiful facility on 6th Street. Yesterday, the Sean McCoy, if you looked at the news, his project on 6th Street is finished. Again, low to moderate income housing, which feeds the needs of our community. Listen, Choice Neighborhoods. I'm excited about the Choice Neighborhood Project, South Harrisburg. The mural project will be finished probably at the end of this month. It's beautiful, whereas there's art on the buildings to motivate, stimulate, and excite our community. But this project is more than just that. It's going to be mixed-use housing. They're gonna get away, we're gonna get away from I call them the World War II houses. Encampments, they look like, which they're horrible, I think, and they're gonna have mixed use. And so for the low and moderate income people that currently live in those housing, in that housing, they will have housing that looks like the housing that we would want to buy and live in. So it makes, it's a even and level playing field for everyone that's going to be living over in the South Harrisburg area. They will also have shops. They will have grocery stores, walking paths. There will be an area where they're going to have housing for senior citizens. So we're very, very excited. We just approved the developer for that project, Woody, OODIE. And the subcontract for that is TLC, which is a minority-owned developer who, by the way, did the project on Regina Street and so forth. So we're excited about that project. So I wanted to let you know that these things, because I think some people believe that there's nothing going on in the city, nothing happening. There's a lot going on in the city, and perhaps we ought to brag a little bit more about those things, but they're happening. I've had the pleasure of working with Ryan with Impact Harrisburg, because I am the chairperson, and of course Doug, and I know his level of commitment and wanting to do anything he can to help us build Harrisburg to be what it really can be. And so we talked about this. This is the mayor's initiative. This is something that she has wanted to do. We are going to start with downtown, because this is something that we can start immediately before we even get a person in, to work with a larger group. So we're going to be working in tandem with Creedic and looking at downtown, the marketing, dealing with attracting businesses to come in. And I know we didn't talk about this, but I'm also working on LERTA. So we're looking at LERTA and modifying LERTA so that it's more attractive to bring more residents in, more businesses in, and so forth. So all this stuff is kind of connecting itself together. I don't want to just steal the show because Ryan's here. And so if you want to go ahead and embellish on what I just said.
Yeah, thanks.
So.
Thanks, Gloria.
You're welcome.
And again, I think it was a good summary of all the great things that are happening in the city. I live in the city, in Midtown. And one of our core values of the Chamber and Creedic is that we're unrelentingly and unapologetically positive about Harrisburg, the region, and the work we do. So that's why I appreciate the list that Gloria had. We were meeting earlier. I was like, you better brag a little bit that things are happening. Just last night, Midtown had that property development, right? So they even make the notes, right? And good things are happening in the city. And I think one of the things that spurred this partnership and engagement that we're having now, as Doug articulated a little bit earlier, was the success we saw in the work that Pittsburgh did, and kind of really broad-based effort to address their downtown. Now, and again, as we've said, we're not necessarily going to R&D it, rip off and deploy what they did in Pittsburgh. But some of the challenges Pittsburgh happens are very similar to the challenges we have here. Downtown Pittsburgh is an office, right? It was designed to hold office workers, never a really significant density of residents. And similarly in downtown Harrisburg, while much smaller, but still about a half a square mile, when you kind of look at it from Forster to Chestnut and kind of everywhere in between, it's a lot of office there, right? There's not a lot of residents. So the challenges and kind of landscape that they've faced are very similar. And I had a chance to talk to our peers there at the Allegheny Conference who did that work. And really the role we hope to play in working with this city is to kind of lead by convening, right? Like to bring as many people to the table as possible, recognizing that not one person, right? We talked about this, not one group, not one, organization, initiative, idea is gonna really try to like kind of turn around the challenges that we have specifically in downtown, but certainly the rest of the city as well. To date, as Gloria was mentioning and Doug said earlier, a lot of work on trying to identify and seek out stakeholders. You know, I think both Gloria and I, since the announcement, have been maybe I'm saying I'm a little overwhelmed, but it's a good thing for people that are saying, hey, I want to help, right? Like, I want to be a part of that solution, and you know, sign me up to do whatever you guys need. And that's kind of where we're at this point, right? We want to get a big list of stakeholders. And I think it's important to note when we're talking stakeholders that it doesn't necessarily mean people, only folks that are living in the city, only businesses that are within the downtown. I think we discussed at our critic board meeting, which Gloria is a member of, and Jason attended on her behalf earlier in this year. And I floated this concept and idea because the idea was starting to percolate. And we asked our board, which includes folks from all over the region, Cumberland, Dauphin, and Perry counties, you know, how important do you think downtown Harrisburg is to the economy of our region? And I said, sliding scale, 1 to 5, what do you think it is? And Jason could correct me if I'm wrong, so it was 4.9 out of 5. You know, so we had one person that always wants to test you, right? To make sure you're not all right in 5s. But they said unequivocally that this is critically important to our region. We're excited just to play a role, try to help bring folks together, having done, you know, regional economic development plans before with on behalf of the greater 8-9 county region, including Franklin County, to develop some federal economic development plans. We've done this work, and Gloria's absolutely right, bringing the right, you know, stakeholders, but also bringing the right consultant on will help us begin this process. In terms of, you know, what we can do now, we absolutely need to begin to identify short-term wins, you know, things that we can do in the near term to try to help turn the tide in what we see in downtown. We don't want to wait for an 8-month process to take place and then all of a sudden said, now let's do this. And thanks to the support of the legislative delegation, Doug, the mayor, and Gloria, I think we're well on our way, certainly, to do that. I think, you know, one of our critical partners in this work will be our friends at the Pennsylvania Downtown Center. We're blessed again. I can actually see their office from my front door, so I will throw a rock if Joy doesn't respond to an email. But she said, we see ourselves as more than an employer in this conversation. We see ourselves as a chance to try to provide technical assistance, other support, convening, to make sure that we got the best downtown, as Gloria said, that we can possibly have. I just want to say a little bit about like the process that Allegheny Conference takes. I think that's important just to kind of understand what that looks like and how you do that work. And I think it's critical to realize that it is a really big multi-pronged effort, right? Like that's why we want to get as many people in the Army as possible, and then work with our consultant, mayor, work with others to say, you know, your strengths align perfectly in housing. So let's try to put this task force together in this group to identify that. And, you know, the Pittsburgh plan involved public safety. It involved housing. It involved streetscapes. It involved parks. It involved office to residential conversion and a lot of different things. And there were content matter experts and groups to try to help spur those activities on. So that's what this will look like similarly. You know, in terms of how we want to approach specifically downtown, but as Gloria said, then moving on, you know, to the rest of the city as well. And I think Gloria touched upon it just a bit there. I think one of the first things we're doing is trying to get the good news out there about the things that are happening. Because there's this kind of energy for this effort for downtown Harrisburg. Now we're working with our friends at Visit Hershey Harrisburg, who receive funding, you know, to market the city of Harrisburg as a destination, and our experts in marketing to put together and help us bring together the great events that the city puts on, Kona, Arts Fest, and the 4th of July, and all the food truck festival, all those different things. The work that the DID does, the work that Harristown does in Soma, right, with block parties. Well, let's all try to bring that together and market that together, and do it in a way that can generate some interest and some positive, we think, not only just, you know, feelings towards downtown, but that leads to development. I firmly believe economic development is part psychology, right? If people feel good things are happening, they want to be a part of it, and we think that's a good first step to that. As we go forward, we just met today and talked with the mayor. I think we'll begin to convene those stakeholders together and begin to identify what those short-term wins can be. We're also working on developing that RFP to go out to get that professional help, working with the downtown center and others to identify organizations and consultants that have done this work across the country to get the best care for what we think is the best capital city, to get the best product for our residents, for the city, for the businesses, and for the region support.
I want to also tell you that this year, for the 2025 block grant, for the community development block grant, I recommended to the mayor that we not do sub-recipient funding, that the money be targeted totally for infrastructure improvement in the city. This process that we're currently in for 23-24 funds, we didn't have as much interest as we've had in previous years. It seems to be the norm now around the country that municipalities are using this money for infrastructure, given the climate in Washington. And so we are going to be, I have tomorrow, actually at 5:30, I'll be holding our public hearing on these dollars. And then it will go before council when they get back, I guess, from hiatus. But that's where the money is going to be targeted. Now, that won't interfere with the funding for ESG, which is for the homeless, or home, which is the development money that developers can apply for. It'll just be the community development block grant funds. I spent a lot of time last year speaking with different departments about identifying need, for instance, public safety, and the fact that we need cameras, brighter lights, street lights, especially in the higher crime areas. And they agreed with me on that. Talking about, trash removal, identifying slum landlords. Also looking at our housing stock and trying to identify and get to the homes that have not decayed to the point where we have to tear them down, but identify those properties early enough so that we can rehab those properties and put them back on the tax roll. So it's kind of falling out that everything is kind of marrying together in terms of this initiative, in terms of our block grant funding and so forth. And so I'm excited about that.
I have one question. Mr. Chairman. Ryan, thank you so much for coming to our meeting today. And I have to tell you, it's incredibly exciting. We have such great passion in the room, and we've been talking for so long about how much passion there is in the community to do economic development. And I'm glad that your phone is ringing off the hook, because we always believe there are a lot of great people and organizations in this community who really want to pull in the same direction.
If you have ideas, downtown at hpgrc.org, because I got tired of getting emails in my inbox, so we created
But
a
I'm
separate one.
I'm very excited. Personally, I'm very excited. I've been doing economic development for over 2 decades. And I love economic development. I love the city of Harrisburg. If you can just give maybe some idea as to how the consultant, first of all, is the grant going to be coming through CREDIC? Is that the
It'll
role?
be coming through the Commonwealth.
Well, the Commonwealth too.
Through her.
Through DCD.
But through DCD most likely. We don't know yet.
We don't know who the
Yeah.
agency that will,
Agency is.
I mean, we're happy to do so, but we're a Commonwealth agency, whoever it is. It's a team effort regardless of
Yep.
how the money moves. It's somewhat irrelevant.
Yep.
I am, as
It's
the
a
manager, I care
Yeah,
about.
we will take it. This is not money for like us to hire people and do the plan, to
Correct.
get out to there.
It's to push it out to
Yep.
define
Correct, push it out.
professionals,
Yep.
That's correct.
to
And the
facilitate
project.
That's correct.
and develop a strategy like, as you said, was done
Mhm.
successfully, although different, was a comprehensive strategy was done. in
A comprehensive plan.
Plan, thank you very much, I appreciate the correction. You see, but obviously you see there's a ton of stakeholders who will be involved and you're familiar with the Pittsburgh process, I assume they brought all kinds of
Yeah, they did.
community groups and local college and
All the-
not-for-profits and everybody. So there's a place at the table for everybody to be part
Oh,
of it.
1000%. Yep.
Okay, just wanted to emphasize, it's a great initiative. Sounds like a heavy lift, but boy, is it.
Well, and I want you to know, we're not Pittsburgh.
No, we're not. No.
And for those of us who have worked for the Commonwealth for 100 years and had to go to 67 counties, more than we ever want to remember. It's like, you know, Pittsburgh, Allegheny County is not Dauphin County and it's not the city of Harrisburg. And we also have another weight on us. It's called the Capitol Complex, State Capitol, which has not always been a friendly position for us. And then COVID comes, and so it kind of wipes that out and so forth. But we're going to be talking with the Commonwealth, you know, about, you know, bringing folks back into the buildings and so forth. I don't know about the rest of you, but it kind of annoys me as a taxpayer that we have all those vacant buildings and not paying for the light and the gas and the water and so forth that has to be kept on, you know, so that pipes don't freeze or whatever, and there's no living bodies in there. And then I have a homeless population I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
So,
Good point.
look, that's my rag for the day.
No, we
Okay?
appreciate it. We appreciate it.
You're entitled.
Right, so I just, you know, we will have to work with the Commonwealth on this.
Yeah.
Because it really has been a crutch for the city for many, many years. And now that it's not there, everything, you know, has a rippling effect. And so businesses have not really adjusted to that well in downtown Harrisburg. And so the benefit of bringing everybody together is to see if we can come up with strategies really to reactivate our downtown, which will have a rippling effect on the rest of our community.
You'll do wonders for our parking revenue.
That's why I brought it up.
When you mentioned earlier, that I joke, that, you know, we've talked to John at Trimont. You notice an increase when there's a budget impasse. So, not that we want that to continue, but in months where the budget goes on, the revenue significantly increase in parking.
Very
Interesting.
So, please go.
A number of thoughts, if you will, and some of this, I realize I'm preaching to the choir that is already way out ahead of us on some of this stuff. Streetlights, Gloria, yes, it just makes me crazy going down Front Street at night and having blocks and blocks and blocks, not where there isn't enough light, where there is no light. That
You
is
know what I
just-
think it is? I think someone was in love when they had those lights installed and they were romancing the stone or something. Because
It's just,
they're moody lights. Think about it. They're low level lights and you don't feel safe. You're absolutely correct.
it's unacceptable as far as I'm concerned and all the problems that come with it. I would hope that Ryan et al. Have already talked with the neighborhood groups or plan to talk with the neighborhood groups. Because those are sources of information at grassroots.
Yep.
I have always thought that the churches, the synagogues, I'll add the mosques, I don't know what I'm missing. Just because I'm not thinking of it and do not wish to exclude any religion that's out there, but I've always thought that we could market tours of those buildings that were organized.
St. Patrick's is the second rated TripAdvisor location in the city. So the father is on our list.
Not only is it wonderful for religious purposes, but also for architectural purposes.
Yep.
And I think if we can get people into there with a nice lunch in between someplace, that is a destination that is at least a morning or an afternoon that could be marketed. The homeless issues, we've got to get a hold of fast. I'm hearing people who were born and raised in the city and have lived here for 4 decades saying they're thinking about moving out for the first time because of the issues that we're seeing downtown. And that's all I want to say on the record. If anybody wants additional information, I will be willing to share. But all of these, I think, are things that really, really need to be done. We've got colleges in the area. Most colleges have some sort of urban planning, government planning type of thing. And I would think we could use those as resources to get people involved. We need people that have a vision for the city. It's always struck me, I lived in DC, I grew up in Jersey, but that's another thing. At the seashore, moved to DC, then moved here. Always thought Harrisburg offered much of what DC offered at much better prices in terms of the housing stuff, in terms of some of the attractions. And I just like to see us do more with it. I will say the most enthusiasm I have heard before this meeting, I heard at the Arts Fest, I heard from a neighbor who had done the stamp art project, both at the Arts Fest and at another time. That's something that has to be low cost, transferable to lots of places, and something that was fun. And you designed your own stamp, and then you stamped something that was used as a tablecloth that had little pictures of all the stamps that everybody else had made. And it was really cool.
Art is a wonderful thing. And we have wonderful artists in our business.
Yeah. And this was for the, if you will, the non-artists. This was for people
Well, it's
that
still
can't, yeah, it's still art, but yeah, it wasn't that you had to have any knowledge to do this. And I would love to see something like that in pop-up situations, because it's low cost and we could do it and add an attraction outside of something else that was going on. So thank you for your efforts, and I can't wait till they take root.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. It is exciting to hear all the different things that are going on that we don't know and make assumptions about. I'm kind of curious about timelines of when things are gonna happen though. Because you mentioned like Polyclinic has been purchased, and any idea of when they'll start with that, or is it started, or?
They initially said July that they wanted to start, because they're not really breaking ground. They don't have,
Right.
they're gonna use the standing facilities and they're gonna rehab those facilities. So that's a good thing, because they don't have to break ground. So, the last I spoke with them, I think they said end of July, maybe August, that they plan to begin, rehabbing. And it'll be phased in, because as you know, we have the nurses' quarters there.
Yeah.
They're gonna be apartments also, but the main building that kind of sits up, elevated up on the, that's where they're gonna start first.
Okay. And then with the unhoused, I was just curious about I think you mentioned the county had purchased land.
Yeah.
They're in the
Where is
process of
that?
doing that. They haven't
Oh.
gone to settlement yet.
Okay.
And it's on Cameron Street somewhere. I don't even know where it is, but I know they've been.
Yeah.
Warehouse.
It's like
That's-
it's like an acre lot.
We have been in more meetings that my memory wants to remember. We literally meet on this almost every other week. And, initially, they wanted the city to purchase property. Legally, the city can't purchase property. So, the county finally said, okay, we'll purchase the property. I do have some ideas in terms of that property and in terms of some dollars that could potentially be used, and that is like to do tiny houses, to do the tiny motor home, that it's not so intrusive, and that there's some semblance of organization or order. But I haven't really sat down in any detail. I'll talk with the mayor about this, but I plan to. That's on my list to do that. And of course, we'd have to talk to the county about it, because I don't know how large space we're talking about, and if we did this, how many little tiny houses we could have, or mobile homes and so forth. One of the issues that you say people are talking about moving, I don't care where they move. They're gonna have to face the homeless population. It is out of hand across the nation. And what happens is, when you're a municipality or a city, you get the homeless population from all your surrounding areas. They come into the city. These are not all of our residents, hardly.
No, but it,
Not only do they come from surrounding communities, they come from contiguous states.
Mhm.
They come from areas farther than that. And there's really no system in place to identify where people come from, whether they should be here X number of months, days, whatever, before they get services and so forth. We, meaning the city of Harrisburg and our providers, make it very comfortable for the unhoused here.
Mhm.
And that's why people gravitate to coming here. And I don't mean to say that in a mean-spirited way, because if I was homeless, I'd go where I thought I could get the best services also. So, but that's a dilemma that we are dealing with. And we have to deal with it. The city can't be, the mayor has done a lot of things. She's put out porta potties, providing places where they can shower and so forth. But unless, and I keep saying this to the county, unless we have a structure, a process in place, because people are homeless doesn't mean that they shouldn't be held accountable.
Right.
They shouldn't be hooking up to, like Shipo, I'll give you an example, hooking up to somebody's water or their electricity, or stealing toys out of their yards or defecating on their properties.
Or the streets.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be some control. And if you expect us to behave like responsible citizens, they should also. Now, we do know we have a lot of mental health issues.
Mhm.
We understand that, but that's also a process where we're gonna have to say, okay, the state hospital's been closed for 100 years now. We can't keep saying that. Now we have to put a structure in place to deal with the mental health population in this city. And we have to put the structure in place where we're not so easily accessible to people coming in from other states and other areas, and our tax base has to pay for it.
I had something else I was gonna ask. I think that was it. I mean, just to expand it. Oh. The thing is that if I put my AFSCME hat back on, with bringing back people back into work. That's not a popular, I just want to mention this. It's not popular with, the folks who actually are teleworking. You have to look at, I know you're looking at if you look at their work productivity, most people are more productive from home, even though I know everybody doesn't agree with me, the unions on that, but, and it should be addressed individually. If not, then it needs to be addressed individually. Don't punish everybody for a few.
We like when they're in the city.
I understand that.
We're not saying that it's not productive.
This pops into my head at every meeting. I just haven't said it out loud. Because I do understand that, about the revenue. I understand.
Well, if the Commonwealth was kinder to us and gave us, some financial assistance, some financial help. I mean, we have to take care of their streets. We take care of a lot of stuff and we don't get reimbursed for it. So if they were a kinder, more gentle state government toward the city, I wouldn't be saying those things.
At all cities.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask?
Thank you.
I'm curious, I know for ages, the Commonwealth has given us money for fire protection. I know there was a big deal over at L&I with the height and ladders and all of that sort of thing. In addition to the fire protection money, what do we get directly from the Commonwealth? For
You'll have to ask
services?
the budget people. I don't know what they get now.
Do you?
Except.
And it's not a pop
No.
quiz. I'm just curious if we could find out more about that.
Right, no, it's been 5 million consistently for capital fire protection in recent years. The other thing I can think of it's major is the pension system state aid that the city gets, although I don't know if you consider that from the Commonwealth, that's more
I would say knowing our budget the way it is, Brian, that, we are lucky to receive a lot of grant money from the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Probably, I would say, just from my knowledge, probably more than similarly sized communities. But that's grants,
Yeah.
and
Right.
they're never a guarantee,
Yeah.
and you never know what the future holds. And while I don't want to bite the hand that feeds, it's wonderful to get state grants, and the city's been very successful. When it comes to direct aid, no, there is nothing else other than grants, whether it be that or many other things.
That, the capital fire is a
Specific.
specific appropriation
Right.
line in the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it
right.
has been since
Yeah.
the seventies,
Right,
a line item in the budget.
Yeah, it's there, but there's,
It's
I think there,
probably-
I mean, there have been points in the past where the city and the state have discussed other things besides fire, which, being the host municipality for state government, puts pressure on the city. And no, there's not a lot of direct financial support. Although the city has benefited in the past from things like parking revenue and from having economic activity from state employees. I think the question that will be answered as part of this is, how much can we count on that going forward? And is that even sufficient for the needs of the city? It's an important question from being the state capital, but it's also a common question that a lot of the other smaller state capitals. I hate to call us a smaller state capital, I know we're a big city, but we are smaller, but you know,
not by the numbers in the legislature.
But you know, compared to some of the large, you know, we're not Phoenix, which is a state capital, but we're more like a Trenton, which is a state capital. And all those state capitals have a lot of similar issues, which is being the host municipality, it's a common problem. You talk to, and I know the mayors do talk to each other.
Yeah.
If you get those mayors which talk to each other, they said, boy, your problem is my problem, because we all host state government and they're like common issues. But not a lot of cash subsidy is the answer to your question.
And that's something I think would be interesting to explore a little bit, the capital cities that are more analogous to this, okay, Boston. Oh, yeah, San Conference here too, yeah, okay, fine, but you know, you get to Albany and you get to
Albany,
Trenton, some of those.
Right.
Okay, do you have any unique ideas or unique relationships that might transfer
I
out? over here?
believe the National League of Cities does have a capital city mayors.
Yeah, they do.
That they try to get the mayors to sort of share ideas and thoughts and problems amongst all those capital city mayors. Because there are problems.
So one thing that we've discussed too is that this is also going to involve developing some metrics and developing market
Right.
evaluations and a number of other things. I was going to comment on that a little bit.
I mean, one of the things we're looking at taking advantage of, we talked about VHH being a strong, partner for this work. They've secured some really great data tools to try to help us better understand the flow of foot traffic from the events that are taking place from Capitol Day. Like, how are people coming and leaving into the city? When are they here the most? That will give us a better idea how to build programming around that too, right? Like the key for all of this, as kind of to be pithy about it, is just to create foot traffic. Like that's your first step, right? Like, and what we're missing with more telecommuting, right, is less foot traffic, right? You have less people coming through your city. So having our, armed around some of that data is going to be incredibly valuable to see, and then try to build, again, strategies, plans, marketing around that, right? And developments around that, right? As we go forward.
And we talked about transportation issues, parking issues. Because unlike just like the foot traffic, not going in the Commonwealth, we have issues with parking, as we all know. And so sometimes that's a stumbling block for people wanting to come into the city because of that. I mean, you pay more for your parking sometimes than you do your meal. And people have said that to me because they still think I'm a council member. And so so we talked about maybe having a trolley car system.
Yes.
And that, if, and that would be a business for someone.
Yeah.
And I think a very viable business. And it wouldn't just be for downtown, but they could go on Allison, in certain locations in Allison Hill and uptown and so forth. So this afternoon, when we were talking, I brought that up about a trolley car system. You know, and especially on a Sunday when you don't have cat operation. And people still want to eat, socialize on Sundays. But again, not everyone drives, has a car, and not everyone wants to bring their car into the city because they don't want to pay for parking.
Well, and I know that also figures into the business planning for someone who wants to do a residential conversion.
Absolutely.
Because, okay, now I have to discount my rental rate by what it's gonna cost you to lease a parking space for your car. One of the other things too that we talked about was, developing a sense of what the impediments might be for.
Right.
And so, you know, how does our permitting process work? How's availability, you know, talk about HUD infrastructure, and so on, and how does that slow or prohibit or, you know, work to the detriment of the business plan? Yeah. Okay. Good. Other questions or comments?
Happy, excited.
Yes, this is probably the best news we've had in this board for a while since,
Yes,
since some of the,
definitely.
we finally got some very good numbers in the budget a couple of years ago. Okay, yes. This is the next step because, you know, as we recognized, when we did this year's 5-year plan, we saw the tail on the 5th year. It's okay, this is looking a little edgy and
No, I'm supposed to be interim. I should have been going months ago.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heard that.
That's fine.
And it was a year, June
We'll
3rd.
talk to Webster about redefining the word interim, but okay. But yes, I think we all obviously recognize it's in one sense for our group, what does this mean to the long-term fiscal health of the city? But to us as residents and, you know, workers here in the city, what does it mean toward the quality of life and the joy that we find in living here? So really appreciate the work that you're doing
Well, we
together.
appreciate you too. I appreciate you, but you know that, and I tell you that all the time, but I do. I appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your commitment, your patience, and the time you give.
We hope to be chatting with you again real soon. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
All right, let's see. I don't believe we have any other business tonight.
You covered the update on appointments.
Right, notice that is a separate.
Yeah, so there's no other, we were hoping maybe we could actually act on appointments, but nothing yet.
Right, not yet.
Maybe that's not.
This close, this
This
close.
close. And that other business.
Another business, I don't see any. So,
Open the floor.
Open the floor for public
Is
comment.
there anybody, we have some guests in the audience tonight. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask the ICA? Brian, do you have any? We'll make sure you get copies, I promise. Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you. Well, then, that comes to point of adjournment, and before we adjourn, I will remind everyone, our next regular meeting is Wednesday, August 27th, and as the promise of things come, maybe a scratch copy of some work on the 5-year plan. The other thing that we will want to incorporate in future agendas, we're going to be having some transitions in elective office, most notably in the controller's office. We'll probably want to have an exit interview of some kind, and then at the appropriate time,
Your city control.
so. All right, so with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, and no second necessary. All those in favor, aye. Meeting adjourned at 4:20. Thank you, everyone.